Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Audi TTS Coupe 09. Let's get into it. In factory trim, this Audi drives exceptionally well. The suspension feels sporty and is very forgiving when making adjustments mid-turn. The handling in general is remarkable, very easy to maneuver and place on circuit. The power is solid for the package it comes in. It's nothing crazy, but has enough poke to have some fun. The brakes are very stable, especially when compared to older models. No longer are we slipping and sliding all over the place when applying the brakes, or having the tail wag the dog. What we have now is firm, solid braking, more than capable of pulling us up before the turn. Let's jump ahead and collect our time. Seven minutes 55.7 seconds. Let's take a look at the tune. The Audi TTS had a lot of issues with bottoming out, so we had to raise the body height significantly. And even still, it can scrape from time to time, but it is no longer detrimental to the drive. Our differential was maxed out in all settings except for acceleration and braking sensitivity, which were reduced to 30 points. This is to prevent excessive torque steer when accelerating out of turns. Let's take a look at how it performs back out on the Nürburgring. When completely modified and tuned, the Audi TTS Coupe becomes a greater version of itself. The overall feel of the vehicle is far more nimble, and it responds extremely well to inputs. When pushing hard, there is a slight sensation of understeer. However, it is not detrimental to the drive feel. The understeer can also be minimized if we choose to roll onto the throttle instead of jumping on it at corner exit. The power and power delivery is significantly better. It is much faster at getting the power to the road. The power comes on aggressively, but somehow also manages to feel a touch lazy as we make our way through the rev range. The brakes have seen a bump in performance and are even more stable under braking conditions. Even when stomping on the anchors, there's very little to report in regards to issues. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes 22.7 seconds. Onto the drift tune. A relatively standard drift tune for the TTS Coupe. Our suspension setup sees our natural frequency being softer at the rear than the front. Our negative camber angle is maxed out at the rear and the front is much lower at 2.0. We added ballast of 50 kilos at a ballast positioning of -30 over the front wheels. And last but not least, our differential settings are all maxed, with our front-rear torque distribution being set to the rear at a ratio of 5:95. Let's go drifting. As far as four-wheel drive drifting goes, the Audi TTS Coupe 09 does a very reasonable job, especially when compared to other four-wheel drive entries we have reviewed so far. The short wheelbase makes for a snappy but easily controllable four-wheel drive drifter. With a touch of throttle control, this vehicle is very simple to place on the circuit. The higher the RPM while drifting, the broader the arc of the drift. The lower the RPM, the tighter the arc. The power delivery is aggressive enough to kick the tail end even at the lower RPM range, but not so aggressive that it turns us around if we bounce off the limiter. Being that it's a four-wheel drive, there is a floating sensation while drifting. This tends to become more prominent the higher we go in RPM. So if we want to maintain maximum control while drifting, it is best to stay at the lower RPM of a higher gear. The nose of the vehicle likes to grip up while on full lock and changing gears. However, this can be avoided if we briefly release the steering input when we shift gears. The Audi TTS Coupe 09 in factory trim is a sporty little vehicle. It drives well out of the box with a good suspension setup and a decent amount of power to have fun with. When completely modified and tuned, it becomes a force to be reckoned with, as the power, grip and balance of the vehicle are perfectly matched. As a drift car, it works well and is fun, but the four-wheel drive drift quirks may be too much for some. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!